Good afternoon, second grade. So, at all times in our lives, there are things that will scare us. Sometimes it's something we've never seen before. Sometimes it's something we're not used to or it wasn't there before. Well, today's story is going to be a little bit along those lines. But just to give you an idea, recently, people have been seeing interesting lights in the sky. A line of lights. And a lot of people are wondering what they are. And if you don't know, then it can be a little scary. Maybe it's a UFO. Maybe it's something unusual from elsewhere. But when you do know that it is a test program for a group of small satellites designed to create better internet access all around, they put 18 small satellites up just to test the program. Well, then all of a sudden you know, oh, that's not aliens, that's internet satellites. And maybe someday we'll have better internet access because of this network. Well, you're scared at first, but then eventually you learn. Well, the other part of this story involves people needing to learn from each other. Today, I'm going to read Death of the Iron Horse by Paul Goebel. Now, written and illustrated by Paul Goebel. There's a little introduction to this story. And I think it helps us understand where and why this story took place. There have been many trains wrecked by Indian people on the pages of fiction. But it really happened only once, on August 7th, 1867. A Union Pacific freight train was derailed by the Cheyenne. The train was traveling from Omaha to Fort McPherson in North Platte, Nebraska, which was then as far as the track had been laid to join the east and the west coast of the nation. The Trans-Pacific Railroad was still under construction. You couldn't get from the east coast to the west coast completely by rail yet. The tribes opposed the construction through their land. The Civil War had recently ended, and the might of the army was turned into driving the Indians onto reservations. The unequal struggle was almost over. The derailment was only a minor incident, but one that the Cheyenne people have remembered with pride and amusement. This book is loosely based on the incident. It tells the story of courage against the steam locomotive, a truly awesome and unknown invention of the white men. When Missouri river boats had first been seen, they caused a panic. Tribes had fled in the mere rumor of the fireboat's approach. Like everything else to do with war, the derailment had sad and unpleasant aspects. But from this distance in time, we could see that the Cheyennes were simply fighting for their lives, liberty, and their own pursuit of happiness. Okay. Understandably, they didn't want trespassers on their land. Long ago, before the white people ever came to this land, the Cheyenne prophet, called Sweet Medicine, had a terrible dream. In his dream, he saw strange, hairy people coming from the east. There were more of them than buffaloes, so many even as the grasshoppers. They killed his people, and those few who were left alive were made to live in square houses. And Sweet Medicine saw them kill all the buffaloes, so that there was nothing left to eat, and the people starved. He saw the hairy people tear open our Mother Earth, exposing her bones, and they bound her with iron bands. Even the birds and animals were afraid, and no longer spoke with the people. It was a terrible dream. And they say that Sweet Medicine died of awful sadness not long afterward. And then one day, white people did come from the east. First a few came, and then more and more. They wanted all the land for themselves. Soldiers attacked and burned the teepee villages. They killed women and children, and drove off the horses. The people fought back bravely to protect themselves and to keep the land they loved. But they lived in fear. People said that those things which Sweet Medicine had foretold were surely coming true. One day, scouts galloped into camp and told of something they called the Iron Horse. It is huge. It breathes out smoke and has the voice of thunder. It is coming this way. The white men are making an iron road for it to go on. Nothing can stop the Iron Horse. They tried to describe it. People had terrifying images in their minds. Was it an enormous snake? Or even an underwater monster which had crawled out of the river? Was this what Sweet Medicine had spoken about? Then there was even greater fear. In the minds of the children, fear grew that the Iron Horse would suddenly come over the hill straight into the camp. Spotted Wolf, Porcupine, Red Wolf, Yellow Bull, Bigfoot, Sleeping Rabbit, Wolf Tooth, and many others whose names were not now remembered, wanted to protect the people from the Iron Horse. There was not much. They were not much older than boys, and they knew they would have to be brave, even ready to die, like warriors who had died defending the helpless ones. The soldiers have defeated us and taken everything we had, and made us poor. We have no more time to play games around camp. Let us go and try to turn back this Iron Horse. They left the camp without telling anyone. They rode all night and most of the next day, and they came to a ridge overlooking the wide valley of the river. Thick black smoke was rising in the far distance. "It is a grass fire," said one. "No, the smoke has a strange shape. Look, the smoke is coming this way, against the wind." "Impossible," said another. "Fire cannot go against the wind." But then the smoke kept on coming, and underneath it, something was growing larger. "It is the Iron Horse. Nothing else can make smoke go against the wind. See, it puffs and puffs like a white man's pipe." When the Iron Horse had disappeared in the distance, the young men went on again. "Let us see the trail it leaves," they said to each other. But nobody ever had even seen anything like its tracks. These must surely be the iron bands binding our Mother Earth, which Sweet Medicine dreamed about. We must cut them apart and set her free. With only tomahawks and knives, it seemed an impossible task. But they dug down and chopped the ties in the middle, and hacked out the spikes until the rails no longer joined together. The moon had long passed overhead when they finished. Dawn was just showing when they saw a small light on the level plain. "Morning star is rising," someone said. "No," said another. "It is the eye of the iron horse shining." Those with the fastest horses galloped up the track to find out. Would you use the light from... Oops, the light from the train up there on the horizon right there. Would you be brave enough to gallop towards danger? When they saw it was indeed the iron horse, they turned around. But their horses were not fast enough. The iron horse came up behind, huffing and panting, belching out clouds of black smoke. It thundered alongside, sending forth screams and hissing and shooting sparks high into the air. Puffa, 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 puffa. As the young men shot their arrows, one tried to throw a rope over the engine, but the horses were terrified and ran from the monster. Suddenly, the locomotive jumped right into the air, and all the boxcars slammed and zigzagged together with a dreadful crash. Everything was twisted up in clouds of dust and smoke and steam. The dust blew away. The hissing steam faded. There was silence. One white man was on the ground. Another was in the cab. They were both dead. "The iron horse does not breathe any longer," someone said. The sun rose as they stood looking in bewilderment at what they had done. Suddenly a door in the caboose opened. A man jumped down and started running back up the track. He died full of arrows. "Come on, let us see what the white people carry in these wagons." They broke open the first car. Inside was a jumble of broken boxes and barrels. The first box was filled with axes. Then everyone was hacking open cases, excited to see what was inside. They had never seen so many different things. They did not know what most of them were, but there were pans and kettles, china plates, and glass vases, cups, files, and knives, like those which cost so many buffalo robes in trade with the white men. Everyone found something useful. There were mountains of boxes, shoes, shirts, pants, jackets, tall black hats, and hats with ribbons and feathers. They scattered them everywhere. Best of all, there were the soldiers' uniforms and blankets, and the glasses with which the soldier chiefs used for looking into the distance. They even found flags, and someone uncovered a beautiful, shiny bugle. In the caboose there were things to eat, bottles of sweet juice. There was also a heavy tin box which would not open. They knocked off the lock. It was filled with bags of silver coins and bundles of little bits of green paper. The coins they took with them because the women knew how to make holes in them and hang them on their dresses. But they threw the bits of green paper into the air and watched them blowing like blowing leaves. There were bolts of cloth in another boxcar, cloth of every color and pattern. "Ha! Look at all this! Here is more than all the stingy traders have. This is all ours. Look how much." "Well, this one is mine," someone said, and he ran off, holding on to an end, while the cloth unrolled behind him. "I'm taking this one," said another, and he jumped on his horse and galloped away with the cloth unfurling and floating after him like a long ribbon. And then everybody did it. When one tied an end to his pony's tail, others tried to step on the cloth, hoping to jerk him out of the saddle. They had great fun. The horses were joined in the excitement, galloping this way and that over the prairie with the lengths of cloth trailing behind them. When they became old men, they loved to laugh about that day. It was only a smudge on the horizon, but first one, then another, stopped galloping to look. Another iron horse is coming. This time there will be soldiers with horses in the wagons. They quickly gathered up all the precious things they could carry, and then someone said, "We will burn this and leave nothing for the soldiers." Taking red-hot coals out of the locomotive, they set the boxcars alight. They reached the high ridge and looked back. The valley was filled with smoke. "Now our people need not fear the iron horse. We will make them glad when we give them all these things. Let's go." This story has remembered the brave young men who defended their mothers, younger brothers, and sisters from the iron horse. Whoever could have imagined that almost within their lifetime, the iron horse would become the train on which we all ride. Now, there's a lot going on here. First off, I want you to notice this. We need to take better care of Mother Earth, don't we? He notices all the garbage along the prairie there. We need to pick up after ourselves. So, were the Cheyenne being silly because they were afraid of something they had never seen before? Of course not. This was a time when there was a war on. A war to push the Indians onto reservations. The Cheyenne and the Crow had very different experiences. It says a lot that you want to protect your home and your family. Many people do. I hope that there will come a time when we can all come together and work as people. All the different nations of Native Americans, all the white people. Bad things happened, especially during a time of war. And at the time where one side had more machines and technology than the other side, it probably did scare a lot of people. I'm sure if I met somebody who was much more technically advanced than me, I'd be a little scared. So, we need to remember the stories. We could pretend this didn't happen. White people could say, "Oh, it was no big deal." But it was a big deal. Native Americans could say, "Well, we'll be quiet about this one too, because it really wasn't, it didn't stop the railroads." But that's not the point. The point is we need to remember stories of people trying to protect themselves and their families and their homes so that we don't have to ever face this again. I would rather that we learn some of these difficult lessons. So today, I'm going to ask 2 questions. Number 1, do you think that there would have been a better way to handle what happened? Would you have gone out and protected your families by destroying a train? Or would you find another way to work it out? I'm just curious. Number 2, do you think that people can learn to get along even if bad things happened in the past? I mean, you might have gotten into a fight with somebody and now you're mad at them. Can that ever be fixed? Can you forgive them? Can they forgive you? Tell me about it in your notebook. All right. Again, this was a little serious story. But I also think it shows courage and bravery, and that's important too. And now we are actually facing kind of a different kind of enemy, because nobody wants to get the bad germs, nobody wants to get the virus. Well, protect yourself. You can't go out and wreck the virus, but you can really mess it up by washing your hands, not touching your face, and making sure that you are keeping a safe distance so that if somebody sneezes, it doesn't land on you. Okay? Those are important. All right. 2nd grade, answer those questions. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Do your best to get a little exercise outside. Again, it's not all about the video games. All right. I hope we had fun with this serious lesson today. I love these books. Paul Goebel is a wonderful writer. So I will see you again tomorrow, and have a good afternoon.